Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's all good. All right, so hopefully people can see this as they're supposed to, and not be watching the other one, which was a colossal fail in terms of starting up. But first off, man, thanks for joining me. For those who don't know, this is my good friend Sanjay, Engineer Wannabe, on the Engineer Wannabe channel, and this is not technically your third time on the channel, because I did 2 videos from the last time we spoke. How you doing, man?
Very good. Very good. Just enjoying a coffee, which I have right here.
Oh,
It's
very
nice
nice.
and early in the morning. So
Yeah. Credit to you, man, for getting up so early. I'm not good at that. It's not my
no,
forte.
no. I always get up early, even on my weekends. So it's fine with me.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Just in case you hear the kids crying, that's what it is.
yeah. So a couple things to talk about today, but I wanted to start off with, for me, what I think was the big news, which is that you're back on the Oris train. I saw your video a couple weeks ago with your new Oris. Talk
Yeah.
us through, what did you get and how did you sort of bounce back? Because you had like a brief little time where I was like, oh, I'm going to wait on Oris for a little bit after that Aquis. What
Yeah.
was the process to getting back? And of course, introduce the watch that you got.
Yeah. So the process was pretty simple. Basically, what happened was not only did I decide to take a break from Oris, I decided to boycott Oris. So what happened was, there was some misinformation given to me, and I thought Oris was an unscrupulous company, and I thought, hey, I can't support that company, so I offloaded all my Orises. I sold them all, but then I had another conversation with the CEO. He said, "Hey, the things you heard are not true," and he gave me, I think, sound evidence to prove that it wasn't true. And I was super happy with it, and I was super disappointed that I was so naive, and foolish to believe what I believed. But anyway, so yeah, I wanted to move on from that. And so I started looking at Orises. I was looking specifically to get into a big crown pointer date again. I had the Roberto Clemente, and I was thinking of getting back into, say, the Burgundy dial, because I really like Burgundy, and it's a beautiful dial. But when I was looking for one, I was at one of my AD friends' places, and he brought out the end of 2020, 2021 Oris Pro Pilots, and it was on a strap. It had this cool, seatbelt buckle latch deployant,
Kind of like on the
and
Pro Pilot X, no?
yes, very much like it. Um, and I thought, hey, this looks pretty good, and it fits on my wrist better than the Big Crown Pointer Date, because I've seen the Pro Pilot, but I'd always dismissed it. I was like, 41 millimeters, I can barely fit the Big Crown Pointer Date on my wrist. How am I going to fit the 41 millimeter Pro Pilot? So I didn't even look at it. But when he showed it to me, I was like, whoa, this fits really well. And so a few weeks later, I pulled the trigger on the Pro Pilot Blue Blurple dialed,
That's so cool.
blue purple, and they call it a big date, but it's just a bigger date. It's not a big date complication.
It's just like literally a big date.
Yeah, just a big date, not 2 discs spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I landed on. I wanted to, support one of my favorite companies again, and wanted to get back into Oris pretty quickly, because of all the misunderstandings, miscommunications, and it was just, sad, and I wanted to
Yeah.
rectify that to the best of my ability. So
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think that's pretty cool. I think, because I remember when we spoke about it, you love the brand, but obviously that experience with the 400, and yours was one of the first ones to sort of highlight that issue, with the time setting, as well as a couple issues you had with the power reserve. It's interesting to see that so far it doesn't look like Oris has really gone too all out on treating it as necessarily a problem. I mean, it is still kind of fresh, and you see some videos that make no mention of it all at all, which makes one wonder, like, you know, did you just have bad luck? Is it just like some part of the production that's a bad batch, or
Well,
so?
with the new Carl Brashear limited edition, it
Yeah,
has the caliber 401,
the bronze
and
one.
I know I've seen that one skip as well. I've seen the date pop, or sorry, the minute hand pop when you pull out the crown, and they actually now include a leaflet on how to set the watch. So
Oh
it says,
wow.
you know, skip it forward, you know, turn it forward, and then roll it back, and that will avoid any minute hand jumping issues.
Wow.
So they kind of explain it as to why that is the case, and then it's actually a really nice uh, little page. And it would have been great if that was in the first run,
Yeah,
but you know, at least Oris is kind of trying to educate the customer now. So
yeah.
um,
And
yeah,
now
which
bringing
I
it,
don't know. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, bringing it back to your new Oris Pilot. Yours is a Solita SW200 in it,
Yeah,
or yeah, thought
yeah.
so. Yeah,
SW200. I mean, Oris doesn't usually modify it too much, but the fact that they got the date all the way out into
yeah,
the edge of the dial, I think is very commendable, because even IWC, even IWC doesn't do that.
yeah.
So
It's a little bit
Oris
further
took
in.
the time to move it out to the edge, and I really appreciate that.
And now having it back, do you feel like you're fully back on the Oris train, or are you still going to be sort of a little bit sort of cautiously stepping in?
Uh, I'm back on the Oris train,
Yeah,
but kind of cautious still on the 400.
yeah,
I'm still going to. I will own one eventually, like I've said before, but still kind of pumping the brakes there, waiting a bit. A few people I asked advice for mentioned that, you know, I should probably wait as well, and so I
yeah,
thought, yeah, I'll wait.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
So that being said, knowing you, there's always another one on the horizon. Do you have any others that are sort of on your radar yet, or are you still sort of in that honeymoon phase where you're just enjoying the new one?
Specifically Oris wise.
Let's start with Oris and then in general, see where it takes
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, with Oris, I'm really enjoying this the Pro Pilot. I'm so super satisfied with it that I haven't even had a chance to look at the other watches that they've. I mean, I'm kind of tempted by the Carl Brashear limited edition. That's really cool, but I'm kind of all bronzed out as well.
Yeah,
I was early on the bronze train, and I'm out of the bronze train.
yeah,
Uh, I do like I like the way bronze looks when it's new,
yeah,
which is why I enjoy the copper aluminum alloy of bronze, which doesn't patina as quickly. But Oris uses a
yeah.
copper tin alloy, and that one turns dark very quickly. So yeah, I'm interested in the Carl Brashear limited edition, but I'm not really looking at anything on the Oris line of things.
All right, cool, cool. Now, before we move into what other ones you're looking at in general, I just want to give a shout out to Leia, who's in the chat box. Anyone else who's watching, make sure you just mention I can see the chat box. I'm not sure. Can you see the chat box as well?
Yeah,
Sanjay?
I can.
Yeah.
It's good to
Okay.
see you, Leia.
So yeah. So put your comments in. Leia is saying that in my opinion, Oris still handles some of the designs very well. Definitely, I think aesthetically, Oris really has been on a very good good trajectory. I mean, everything from the dial on your new Pilot to the dial on the new Aquis 400. I love the way that watch looked.
Mhm.
Their bronze pieces, I think they execute them very well. The Diver 65 and the two-tone bronze, I think that was a pretty cool sort of innovative use of it. So yeah, I think design-wise, Oris pretty much has it down packed. I mean, even the Pro Pilot X, which isn't everyone's cup of tea because not everyone likes like skeleton watches, but even that I think looked really cool. So
Yeah.
I think design-wise, they've got it down, and I think they're on the right track when it comes to the movements. I think that at the end of the day, the problems with the 400 are just teething problems of a new movement. I would expect in the next few months, those problems will just sort of silently go away, one would
Yeah.
hope.
Well, it almost seems like they're just gonna dig their heels in and keep going, at least based on that, you know, leaflet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But maybe over time it'll be less prominent.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
and
think maybe that'll be like a sort of a quick fix, that little leaflet. And
yeah,
then they'll probably keep shipping out the leaflet even once they fixed it, just to make it look like it was never really a problem at all. Sort of keep things under the radar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's highly plausible. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, in terms of other watches in general, what have you got your eyes on these days?
Well, lately the King Seiko reissue has been coming up a lot, and I'm definitely very interested in picking one up soon. I know Leia was offered one at a screaming deal, Leia in the chat, and at that price, I probably would have purchased it. But the King Seiko is high up on in my radar, and eventually, at least at some point this year, if things go well. I hope to get a JLC Reverso, the burgundy dial. I really want a burgundy dial watch.
That one's really nice.
Yeah.
I had my eyes on that one for a while,
Yeah.
because I also wanted to have a Reverso in the collection, and still do.
Yeah.
But then I got distracted, as I tend to do, and then also so I was looking at reversals for a while, because originally that was going to be my next watch, and then in looking at reversals, I started going down the rabbit hole of looking at what pre-owned stuff they have, what's our previous iterations there are, especially after I reviewed that the triple date reversal, which has the open case back. I started thinking, all right, what other iterations can I get? Because the burgundy dial one, if I'm not mistaken, it just has the plain case back, so it's like the traditional reversal usage. And I was like, oh, but I feel like I would always feel bad not having something else on the back, so I started looking at open case back ones, seeing ones that there's a few cool chronographs that have where it's the chronograph display is on the back, and then of course you have the traditional the dual phase, with the second time zone. And I was thinking, all right, so now I want one with a second time zone. And then I fell down the rabbit hole of, well, this will be kind of my dress watch, so maybe now is a good opportunity to look at maybe something in precious metal. So now my sights are set on getting a yellow gold one, which is even harder to find, because for the last decade or so, give or take, they've only been doing rose gold, and I want proper old school yellow gold.
Yeah.
So long story short, it ballooned up the budget for my reversal, and so now that's been postponed to not the next watch, but the watch after, just because it'll take me time to find the right one, and especially because it'll be like early 2000s, late 90s. I want to make sure I find like a perfect example. But yeah, the reversal is a beautiful watch, and it's so cool, even in just like the plain case back, just the novelty of having that rotation. And burgundy dial, I think, is a sick option. I think there aren't enough red dials in general.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Rado just released a bronze with a copper tin alloy, bronzed Captain Cook, and it's really nice. It's a bright red, so not a burgundy, but a bright red dial. It's really nice. And the fact that it doesn't patina like a regular bronze watch does is a huge plus for me. So I've been considering that, but that would severely hit the watch budget for a reversal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the reversals, is they're nice, but they're not exactly entry level, to put it lightly. But but yeah, some of them are so cool, and it's just a timeless design. I think it's one of those icons where, if you think of like icons like the Speedy, like the Submariner, where those will still be recognized by just about anyone, I think reversal is where you start getting into that territory of it's iconic, but not everyone recognizes it. So pretty much no matter what, you're going to get that, oh, that's cool, what is that? Or nice reversal. And then it's like, that's someone who you want to have a conversation with, the person who recognizes the reversal.
Yeah, for sure. That's never happened to me, but actually, no, that has happened to me once with when I used to have an Oris Diver 65. Someone did want to talk about the watch, which was mind blowing. You always think, because no one ever notices the watch. You always think that no one ever will, but when someone does, it's crazy.
Yeah, and those are often the best conversations, especially when you have something that is less recognizable. Because then it's like right away that you're speaking to someone who's into watches, and then you just fall down the rabbit hole, and next thing you know, you've spent an hour or 2 hours just speaking to a complete stranger about watches. So yeah, like I got that a little bit when I was in Singapore, because obviously there's a big watch community, but at the same time in Singapore, it's almost like a Rolex is like a uniform. So it's like
Right.
everyone will still be wearing it, but the crazy thing is they still know tons about watches, and then they'll still know. Like this was when I had just bought my Pasha. I remember going into a room, everyone with Hulks, JMTs, you know, Daytonas, and they're all just beelining over my Pasha. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. But it was just amazing, just the amount of enthusiasm that you can find, at least in a place like Singapore, for people who just know and love watches, regardless of what they're wearing. So
yeah, for sure.
that was
That's
cool.
really, yeah. Where are you wearing today, by the way?
Today I've got my Seamaster on a
Oh yeah,
steel Milanese bracelet. Sort of
beautiful.
a poor man's No Time to Die.
Yeah.
But I love it on this. Like I just switched it now because the last 2 weeks or so I've been wearing a El Primero Chronomaster that a friend of mine lent me for a review.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I've been loving that, and I want to talk about your experience with the Zenith as well in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice getting it back to the Seamaster. What about you? What have you got on, or have you just got the Oris handy?
No, I just had the Oris handy because I knew we were going to talk about it. But I am wearing my most sentimental piece. This is the Seiko Presage enamel dialed SPB045.
Oh, that's nice.
So I bought this first in 2018, and it was it was what I thought was going to be my exit piece back then. I was like, hey, you know, I had a Diver 65, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a nice Seiko um, that's probably going to be, you know, a dress watch and a sports watch at the same time, and that's it. That's good for me. I'm gonna check out now, but didn't work out that way. I sold it because I got the SJE. So I was climbing up the ladder. I got the SJE 073, which is the frost dialed Seiko with a 6L35 movement. So really thin watch, automatic watch. And I sold it, and it was probably the biggest mistake I made. I think we spoke about this in the last live stream that we.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about that one. Yeah, that was back when you
So
were
I was
talking about
I think on that live stream day I was going to go to my AD that actually got this in specifically for me to see. So yeah, on that day I did eventually. So didn't get a discount. It was kind of a no, I didn't enjoy that, but I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna let this go by again. I haven't seen it in a shop window forever, so I snapped it up, and I was like, yeah, you know, pretty good. Yeah,
I haven't sold or owned it, just to be in that point where I bought and sold a watch. But I think it's just so cool when you have a watch that, you know, you want to be able to get it back. It's almost like I want to experience a watch where I have that sort of remorse.
yeah.
Like right now, the only watch I've sold is my Tudor, and I still think that's a great watch. I love it to death, but I don't exactly pine for having it back in the collection. And
Right.
also, I'm seeing we've got a few more people joining in the chat. Shout out to Jock Dodson, who's up and early in Utah. And then also we have Enhilal, who's also saying, hi guys, how you doing? I'm good. And we've got Double A saying Seiko should always be 20 to 30% discount. What's your experience been with that? I mean, obviously you say that with this one you didn't get a discount, but how's it in general with discounts when buying Seikos?
Yeah, usually 20 to 30% is bang on. I think my dealer knew that I really wanted this because he got it in for me and basically played hardball with me. And I was like, you know what? It's one of the more affordable artisanal Seikos, one of the more affordable higher end Seikos. So I was like, yeah, even if I got 20 to 30%, it's okay. He got it in for me. You know, he did me that favor. So I'll buy it at list. You know, it's the least I could do. So yeah, usually I wouldn't buy it at list. It would have to be at least 20 to 30% off, which is why I'm having trouble with the King Seiko reissue because no one's apparently giving discounts on that. So
wow.
Yeah.
Is that one a limited production or limited edition or anything?
Yeah.
Or it's,
yeah.
oh, okay.
3,000 pieces limited edition. Yeah.
So I imagine that would probably be it. Do you notice much variance in terms of how much discount you get in terms of where you are on the Seiko spectrum? Because obviously, excluding Grand Seiko, Creator, etc., Seiko itself has a pretty broad price range. I mean, you can get them in the hundreds up into the early thousands. Do you notice that it's pretty consistent, the amount of discount you'll get, or on some of the cheaper ones, are they more firm? What's your experience been with that?
For me, it's been pretty much around the 20 to 30%. Even if I buy a Seiko Samurai or one of the higher end Seiko Arita porcelain dials, or even the Seiko LX models. The LX model, I think the LX GMT, I had it for a very brief amount of time, and I got 35%, I think.
What did you think? Or I guess the more important question is, how come the LX GMT left the collection?
Too big, and too uncomfortable. It has a interesting quick adjust mechanism on the bracelet, so it's not like the one that's on the diver. The diver has the the professional adjustment system, the ratcheting adjustment.
Yeah.
But the LX GMT has a hidden quick adjust system, kind of like a glide lock, I guess, or something like that. But they didn't give you any half links, and it only had 3 positions of micro adjustment, and it was either ridiculously loose to the point where it was spinning around my wrist, or ridiculously tight. I've never experienced that level of disparity in between links and adjustments.
Well, especially for a micro adjust.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds more like the experience. It's like what I have with my Cartier. It doesn't have any half links. I'm still not sure if I was just sold one that didn't have the half links in it, or if it's the original model. But yeah, that's the case with mine, and especially because I had bought it in Singapore in the middle of the summer, so it was super hot. So I ended up opting for it, having it a bit loose. But now in the winter, when my wrist is like a little bit more compressed more of the time, it's flying all over the place. But at least that's because there are no half links and no micro adjust. Usually you would think a micro adjust is for getting that just right spot.
Yeah, and even the micro adjust on the GMT, it's kind of like a ratcheting system, so you'd kind of get it right and then you'd squeeze it tight, kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found it to be grossly uncomfortable. So yeah, I didn't.
Because I was considering those LXs, like, remember, just like with on the last time we spoke, I'm trying to consider, getting into a Japanese watch at some point, be a Seiko or a Grand Seiko, and those LXs appeal to me a lot. I like their design. I like the fact that I think 1 or 2 of them was in titanium, which is another sort of box I'd like to check at some point. So they seemed appealing. Oh, they're all in titanium. Perfect.
Yeah.
So they seemed appealing, but it's always good to have. That's the good thing why I like speaking with you. I feel like you've either worn, bought, or owned like pretty much every Seiko or Grand Seiko that I've looked at. So
but
it
at the same
helps
time,
having that.
keep in mind, I have a 6 1/4 inch wrist, so really small wrist. You have a bigger wrist, you might find it to be different. I don't think that watch is designed for something as small as my wrist. So so you might actually enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I'll check it out, but I'll make sure it's sized before I buy it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So going into the chat box, Leia is wearing her Aichi 2 during work. That is a cool watch. That is a beautiful watch, the Creator. And then and Hilal is asking, you guys seen the Carl Brashear? Well, we were speaking about that a little bit earlier, but I think we didn't have that many people in the chat. But yeah, we've both seen it. I haven't seen it in person. I wonder what it looks like, but I think it's a pretty cool watch. You want to sort of recap your thoughts just for those who are just joining in?
Yeah. I think it's a really nice watch. It's 40 millimeters, so it's got the classic Oris Big Crown. The Oris Diver 65 case shape, and I think that's great. It's a great size. I really like the MN Marine Nationale strap on it, so the elastic strap on it. The only thing that I personally don't like is the fact that it's bronze. The fact that it's a copper tin bronze. I prefer a copper aluminum bronze, because that way it doesn't patina as rapidly, and it doesn't look really dirty. That's just not for me. But that's the only thing that would keep me from getting one of those. The fact that it's a copper tin bronze.
Yeah, no, I think I'm probably the same. I like the idea of patina, but I know that in practice I probably wouldn't enjoy it. I'll just keep thinking, damn it, why is my watch dirty? And I know that you can easily unpatina it quite quickly, but I feel it's one of those things that I don't know. I would get annoyed by it after time. I
Yeah,
think I would like my watch to stay somewhat looking like when I bought it. I mean,
yeah,
like scratches are one thing, but the patina I think would just get to me pretty quickly. What are your thoughts
yeah.
on scratches on watches? Are you someone who sort of who likes to keep them nice and pristine as much as you can, or do you just let them happen?
No, I had to kind of resign myself to that, especially having Grand Seiko and Zaratsu polishing, which
Oh
is ridiculously scratch prone. I remember I had the snowflake, and one of the biggest issues I had with it was it looked like a mess if you looked at it really close. I
yeah,
had it for a year, and it did not look pretty with the scratches on it. And I think that was kind of a reckoning, because after that, I started to not care about scratches as much.
yeah,
So now I'm at a good spot where, if a scratch happens, I'm okay with it.
it happens.
I've kind of resigned myself to it. But I know if a ding happened, that would be gut wrenching. So if,
Yeah,
that's the thing with the Seiko SLA, the 62 mass reissues with the ever brilliant steel. The
yeah,
case on that is so sharp. It's like cut you sharp,
yeah.
and even the slightest hit on that case will leave a dent. I'm sure of it. And
That
it's such a beautiful watch, but that would terrify me. And it's really thick too, so you're going to bang it on something eventually.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that would be, I think, traumatizing. I 100% agree. I've accepted scratches as a reality. Like, I remember first scratch on my Omega was on the clasp. It was literally a day after I had bought it, because I bought it and then I got on a plane the next day. And so I know it was the seatbelt. I went to sleep in Sydney as the plane took off. I woke up in Singapore like a few hours later, woke up, and then I look at the bottom of my watch. I'm like, ah, shit. But since then, it's like, you know what? They happen. They're gonna constantly be happening. You can't get rid of them. And then also on my Black Bay, because it had that big sort of side flank that's all polished, and on top of that, because I wear my watches on my right hand, so that side is all exposed, essentially. Like that's usually the point of first impact. Whereas for everyone else, it would be the crown side.
right, yeah,
So that also had a nice big scratch going along, and I was like, oh, you know what? It's gonna happen. It's gonna
yeah,
happen.
it is.
Like, but at the end of the day, like for the most part, I've realized that if scratches bother you, but you're resigning yourself to the fact that they happen, definitely go satin polish, because at least it doesn't show as much. I don't think I could handle having a watch with polished sensor links, because I would see them that much, at least on my Omega, on my Cartier, because they're satin finish. Most of their scratches, you don't actually notice them.
Yeah. I used to actually be really I used to be a car detailer, so
Mm.
scratches were really difficult for me. Like, I'd be the guy with a buffer polishing out the hood, making sure it's mirror finished, and show car shine on it. And the funny thing is, watches actually help me resign to damage on my car as well, right? Because I used to be the guy, okay, winter's coming, there's going to be to put up some kind of protection barrier on the front of my car so that I don't get stone chips and things like that. Now I'm like, yeah, it's going to happen anyway, so just enjoy it, enjoy the car, enjoy the drive. So watches actually have helped me get over all the fussiness that I used to have, even though I'm
Yeah.
still really fussy.
That's funny. And let's see, we've got a few more people in the box. We've got Rajiv Miraj, who's joined us. And then also we've got AA, who I think was responding to when we were talking about the Carl Brashear. He was saying, too expensive when you can have the Captain Cook bronze, or the Legend Diver bronze is 30% cheaper at RRP. Yeah, it's a fair point. We were talking about that Captain Cook before. There's
Yeah,
a lot of good options for bronze. I think we're definitely far away from the point of Panerai bronzos, which were like sort of pioneering at that point. Now I think nearly every brand has some attempt at a bronze watch, and you can really get one for any sort of price point. I would be interested in getting, I think maybe if I found like a really cheap one, just getting it just to see just to sort of test drive it, because I feel
Yeah.
like the Patina is something that you need to have enough time, so you can't really just like, you know, look at the Patina in store. I wonder how they manage the Patina in stores as well. Like,
They don't. At least my AD, one of my ADs keeps it in a plastic wrap, so
okay,
it doesn't touch the air really.
yeah,
But another one of my ADs just leaves it out on the display stand, and you know it's
that's
getting darker, and yeah, it looks like it's been worn for a while, but it's brand new. So
I wonder which strategy works better for them. Like, I
I'm not
imagine
sure.
I imagine the latter approach would at least save you a lot of returns from people who don't quite understand how bronze works. Because I'm sure there must be people who buy it saying, "What's wrong with my watch? It's like growing mold on it."
Yeah, especially someone who's thinks, "Whoa, that looks like a gold watch. I can get that for what, $2,000 if it's
Yeah,
an Oris." Um, but it then finds out it doesn't look gold anymore in a week.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I imagine
But
I imagine there must have been some early teething problems with that.
yeah, yeah. Although mostly the guys who get into bronze are kind of watch enthusiasts, so it's
Yeah, that's true.
probably expected.
All right. And now, of course, guys, keep asking your questions in the chat box. We'll be happy to answer them. But let's move on to probably the brand of the hour, which is Zenith. I think they've been getting plenty of buzz over the last week and a bit since they released the Chronomaster Sport. You've owned a Zenith, and I've had a Zenith on loan for the last 2 weeks, so I like to pretend that I've owned a Zenith.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I really don't want to give it back. But yeah, like, what do you think of the new Chronomaster, and what do you think in general of sort of what Zenith's been doing over the last year or so, and where you think they're going in the future?
Um, I really like the new Chronomaster. It's a beautiful watch. I really like the striking tenth complication. So the fact that the it registers the tenth of a second, I think that looks really cool. Um, I don't know what that's going to be like to service, and I'm sure it needs. Uh, uh, well, I think the service interval is 5 years on that, but um, if you, yeah, that's a whole other story. But I really like the striking tenth complication, and I feel, um, I feel it does look a bit like controversy. I feel it does look a bit like the Daytona, and it's uh, it's hard to not see the connection, at least for me. But yeah, at the same time, I do understand that it's not a homage. I would
Yeah,
absolutely never call it a homage because it's like saying the 62 mass looks like the Submariner, right? A Seiko 62 mass. And it does. It's a dive watch. It has a dive bezel, and it's a three-hander. So it's definitely not a homage. It's not a copy, right?
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I do see the resemblance, especially because of the colorways. Um, I think Zenith is a great brand. I prefer the A384, and the one that I used to own was the Chronomaster 38 millimeter. So I
yeah,
prefer those two watches over the Chronomaster Sport. I keep looking at the A384, and I feel like I get really close to buying one, but I remember what happened with the Chronomaster Sport is I just didn't enjoy it. Like the enjoyment for per dollar value was
yeah,
was kind of low for me on that. Um, and I think once I got to Zenith was where I realized, hey, I really love Grand Seiko,
yeah,
and I get the most enjoyment from them. So why not just ultra focus on Grand Seiko? But the A384 keeps calling my name. I really enjoy that watch. So you never know. I might get back on the Zenith train as well.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I like what they've done in a sense. They've got, call it, three main pillars of their range right now. They have the Ultra Future, in my view, which is like the Defy. It's modern, very crisp. They have the Past, which is in their A384, A385 revivals. And then the Chronomaster Sport is sort of showing the present plus a year or two, because I think that's striking that tenth of a second complication. I agree. I think it's very cool. I'm glad they finally taken advantage of having the 36,000 VPH, because for the longest time, the most one could say about 36,000 VPH is, okay, you get a smoother sweep, and if you want to be a bit more of a geek by having more vibrations, it means that you have a bit more room for errors to happen without it affecting your accuracy, or at least as far as I understand, that's one of the advantages.
Yeah.
But now there's a practical use that I think you can actually use and see, and I think it was on Watch Advisor. He pointed out a very important thing. When you're timing pretty much any sport, who the fuck measures in 1/8 of a second? You know, it's true. You know, like at the end of the day, anything that you're measuring, especially that's supposed to be faster, you need that tenth of a second. It's much more relevant. I'm personally someone who I'm like the opposite. I always lamented on my tutor not having an hours register, and I think on that Chronomaster Sport, I would the same. I would be like, why doesn't this have an hours register? Because I like timing things that are more than an hour. Because anything less than an hour, I just use a dive bezel or my phone if I'm like really needing precision. So, but I like the fact that they've actually finally taken advantage of that high vibration. And yeah, I agree with you. I think it's undeniable that there's a resemblance to the Daytona. But at the same time, A, you have their shared history, which I think that on its own gives them a pass. And B, from a more practical level, there's only really so many ways you can put a ceramic bezel on a watch. You know, like the only real other option is if they went Speedmaster style and had it sort of as like a little bit of an outboard ring. But then probably everyone and their mother would be saying, "Oh, it's a Speedy homage," which it wouldn't be that either. You know, I think though what let them down in terms of the comparisons is the bracelet. Because when you look at it is the bracelet and actually also the color choices for the base of the dial being just black and white, it's like, okay, Daytona comparison. And the bracelet, I had said it in my video and I still maintain it. They should have gone with the Defy bracelet, I think. So then they could create this idea of the Zenith bracelet. In the same way that anyone who sees a 3-link, almost immediately they'll jump to, oh, Rolex. You know, like Zenith doesn't have that for a bracelet yet. And I think in general, brands should aspire to have that sort of association because it helps just reinforce the recognition, I think. So
yeah, and even I really like. I was gonna say I really when you showed it. You know, you did the rendering of it on a Defy bracelet. It looks completely different, and even on the textile strap that they sell it in, it looks different.
That I think, if I was getting one, I would go black dial, textile strap, worlds away from a Daytona when you do it in that configuration.
Yeah. Or even if they brushed the mid link, I think it would have, even just that little change, I think it would have helped assuage the homage people.
No, but definitely I think it should be judged on its merits, both technical, historical, and also aesthetic. I mean, there's enough small details that are changed in my view that it doesn't deserve to be an homage, because otherwise, like, every single dive watch would be an homage to either the 50 Fathoms or the original Submariner.
Yeah,
there are certain templates that we're just used to and that are just used for a sports chronograph today, and the Daytona-esque template is one of them.
Yeah, that really shows how absurd it is to call it an homage of the Daytona. Like, if you think of every dive watch ever, it looks like a Submariner. Not every dive watch, but most dive watches look so similar to Submariners that you'd be calling every dive watch an homage.
Exactly. And then when you start getting into the nitty-gritty, because also, like, definitely, like, those dead-on hero shots, they don't show you things like the shape of the case. For example, the Daytona has a much more curved case, has those tapered in lugs, whereas the Chronomaster, the case shape is pretty much the same as the previous gen one that I've been wearing. You see, like, on the sides, like, it's a lot more geometric. It's got these stubby little lugs at the end. Like, that sort of nuance and difference, you don't really notice that in online shots, I don't think. So, so that's something I think that maybe people haven't recognized as much, but hopefully as more sort of hands-on videos come up and people get to see them in their ADs, I think then people will sort of notice and hopefully, I just hope that it's a good starting platform, because with the previous gen Chronomaster, they've done so many different combinations. They've done the open works, They've done the open hearts. They've done all sorts of different dial colors. My favorite for the previous gen Chronomaster is is that collaboration they did with Bamford, the radar one. It was like black and red.
Okay.
That
I
one
haven't
was
seen
really, really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've done all sorts. And then when I was looking at Zeniths for myself, ironically, just before this whole sort of craze was coming out, one of the ones I saw was a Chronomaster was black dial, and that has these sort of like half rings, these silvered half rings on the it was on, let me check the configuration, on the minutes and seconds
Okay.
register. So at the 3 and the 9. So that was a cool configuration that I hadn't seen. So I think there's so many options they have with this as their base. I'm just excited to see what they come up with next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah. I would like to get back into Zenith, but I keep remembering why I got out of Zenith.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I do wonder if maybe the A384 might be more fun, perhaps. I mean, like, because I do think definitely that vintage charm has a certain character to it. Now, whether that's the character that you're after in a watch, that's obviously subjective, but it definitely has a lot of character, especially when you get the ones that are on the bracelets as well, with the big open, the Gay Ferris bracelet, the big open links. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you kind of have to have it on that bracelet if you do get the A384. It's so fun. You're absolutely right. That's what really draws me to it. It's serious history, but at the same time, it's not taking itself too seriously. Which is really nice. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and the other cool thing with that revival line in general that they're doing is I love the fact that they're actually digging up and releasing dial configurations and colors that they didn't actually do in the 60s. They're sort of weaving in that tale of, of Charles Vermeaux hiding away the tooling, the dials and all that in the attic. And I think it was late last year, they showed a video of how they actually went up to the attic and they were like, well, we've now discovered these dials that we never actually produced on a production watch. They were just concepts at that time. And they're releasing 1960s, 1970s concepts with with a 2021 warranty, essentially, which I think that's pretty cool as well. The way they're able to, they're not reissues really because they were never issued to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the A385, right? And then the blue dial, the three shades of blue sub-register.
Yeah, that's the one I think that I had in mind when I saw that video. So I think it's a really cool approach, and I think Zenith has definitely come into their own. I think there was a period where Zenith, Hublot, and Tag Heuer, all under the leadership of Jean-Claude Biver at varying points, they kind of converged a little bit, but now it's like they're sort of spreading their wings again. It's like they did what they needed to do to sort of survive, get the balance sheet looking good for the corporate people and whatnot. And then now they're like spreading their wings and showing, okay, this is what our new brand is going to be. So I think it's pretty cool. And now, of course, I would be committing horrible blasphemy and sin not to talk to you about Grand Seiko. And what have you liked from what they've done recently, and what are you expecting from them in 2021?
I do like their new case shape for the GMTs. So recently they released a 40 millimeter GMT, and I think that's it's not that recent at this point, but I do really enjoy that case shape. It's very well made and it's very beautiful. It doesn't follow the grammar of design per se, because it has a lot of curvature to it, which is nice and refreshing. But jumping on from that case shape, I am certain, or I'm pretty sure, that there will be a dive watch in the 40 millimeter size this year, at some point this year. They would be, quite foolish if they didn't make a smaller dive watch, and I think a lot of people are clamoring for it. So either this year or maybe next year, I hope to see a 40 millimeter dive watch. Recently, I've been really pining over the SLGH003. That is the one with the 9S-A5 movement. Beautiful watch, beautiful blue dial, celebrating the 60th anniversary of Grand Seiko last year.
Oh yeah, no, that is a nice looking watch. An 80-hour power reserve on a high beat. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it has this like a bunch of new technologies, new overcoil system. I can't really remember all of it, but it's a beautifully decorated movement as well. And I think that movement is what's really drawing me to it. And it's a good size. Really weird case shape because it has 22 millimeter lugs on a 40 millimeter case. So it's very squat and aggressive. And I've been kind of wanting it, but at the same time, I kind of want to see what else is coming out soon. Because that movement is a bit thinner as well. And so I guess theoretically, the watches that come out with that movement next will be a lot thinner, and that's one of the criticisms of Grand Seiko is that they're too thick. And I think this movement, the 9S-A5, and its variants are going to help change that. Get a thinner GMT, maybe with a 44 GS case with a 9S-A6 movement. It would be really nice to see. So I don't think that'll happen this year, probably next year, maybe the year after. But it's really really something I'm looking forward to see what they do with the 9SA5 movement.
Yeah. Now I see we've got a question in the chat that is designed for you, because there's no way I would know how to answer this. AA is asking, do you think they will update the SBGA 2111 with the new movement?
So the SBGA 211 is the Snowflake. I don't think they will. I think they will keep the Snowflake with the 9R A5. So the 9R65 movement is what the Snowflake has right now. I think they will keep it there to be a good middle ground. Like it's an iconic watch that a lot of people enjoyed, a lot of people know, and I think it'll stay the course and be that middle, like a halo piece, but not really, like a middle jumping in point for a lot of people. And then they'll have higher end watches with the 9R A5, which is the new spring drive movement, which is a bit thinner and more interesting. But I don't think they'll actually change the SBGA 211, the Snowflake.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if they use this new movement as a base for a chronograph, because one of the things I realized was that Grand Seiko doesn't have many chronographs to begin with, and the ones that they do are quite on the thick side. Like, so I'd be curious to see if they do something that's maybe a little bit more streamlined, because I feel that's the only thing that's really missing in the Grand Seiko lineup. I mean, they've had a lot of cool divers, and divers also, I think there's more tolerance for them being thicker. They've got some good GMTs, dress watches, of course, standard sport watch 3-handers. But I feel like a chrono, sports chrono, is something that maybe that's something they're still missing. And I like the chronos that they've done, but they're just really thick. And then there's also that one that has, it's like the pushers look like gigantic on it. I forget what reference it is. Let me go real quick.
It's the SBGC 201. That's the one with the huge pushers.
Yes.
201 and 203.
Yeah. That's the one. That's the one that I have in mind. It's like they could definitely use something a little bit more streamlined.
Parts on the pusher, the screw down parts are huge. Like it's like a bolt. But it actually wears a lot better than it looks. It looks like it would be incredibly uncomfortable to wear, but it's actually really nice. It's a nice watch. It is really thick, and I think that one of the reasons it's so thick is because they throw everything at you. Like almost all Grand Seiko chronographs have a GMT complication added to it, so it's a really busy dial. And with the power reserve, the 3 sub registers, and GMT complication, and it's kind of not for everyone, and definitely not for, even though I really admire it. I would hope they would make something thinner. I don't know. It's a lot of redesigning they'll have to do,
Yeah.
unless if they develop some sort of modular piece that can go on the 9SA5 to make it, or the 9RA5 to make it a thinner spring drive chronograph. But then at that point, when you put a module on top of that, it's
Then
going
you're
to
adding height already. And then also you have the offset pushers, which I never really liked that with modular chronos, how they have the offset pushers.
Yeah, I agree. I prefer the integrated chronographs as well.
Yeah,
Which
but
is why they
knowing the Wizards of Grand Seiko, I'm sure they could find some sort of way to either use whatever similar principles they used to be able to reduce the size on their three-hander to maybe do the same sort of technique on a chronograph. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, I think if anyone can, it's Grand Seiko.
Yeah, and they even have the new tourbillon movement, the concept movement, the T0, that they don't really have a watch on it, but it's kind of like a flex, I guess. That
That's
Grand
so
Seiko
cool.
did.
We're just going to make a concept movement. You know,
Yeah.
put on a watch. Don't bother. We're just. It's almost like them saying, like, just a heads up to the Swiss watch industry. Hey guys, you know we can, right? Too comfortable.
Yeah, except that's kind of the way the Japanese culture would do it. They would never, say it in an aggressive way. That's dishonorable. That's not.
Just a solidly passive aggressive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I admire about the Japanese culture.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's one thing that I like about the Grand Seikos. Like, I've explored them a lot more since when we've started talking, because you've sort of opened this gateway to this whole other world of watches. Is that you can really notice a different philosophy in how they approach watches. Even, for example, even something like the Zaratsu polish, right? They'll have huge high polished surfaces, but somehow the watches don't come off in the least bit showy. If you compare that to, say, like a mid 2000s Breitling Avenger, Mr. B is watching, no offense, but but that in like full high polish, it's like super gaudy. Whereas Grand Seiko, they can have tons of big polished surfaces, but it doesn't look showy at all. It somehow still manages to be artful, and then the way they shape their cases, it's almost like organic. It's like the polish sort of helps it just seem, not like it's something that's just a bunch of metal and gears. It looks like a living thing. I really like the way that they approach their design and their watchmaking as well.
Yeah, it's really strange that it comes off that way too, and I agree. It does come off, a bit more reserved than say a Breitling Avenger. No offense to Mr. B, but the reason they came up with that is to make it look really striking, though. I think because the grammar of design was so that every surface was supposed to be mirror finish, and there was supposed to be no distortion, so it would look like a jewel on your wrist, like the way the light bounced off it. But at the same time, it doesn't look like a hey, look at me kind of piece. It's more of a reserved, but it looks like a true work of art, on your wrist, and that's, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm so drawn to Grand Seiko.
Yeah. No, I really do like their look, and even coming back to the thickness, I've noticed on some of them, even though they may be thick by the standards of like a three-hander, being, say 14.5 millimeters thick on just a three-hander with 100 meters water resistance, they don't seem to come off as actually thick when you see them on the wrist. A lot of the times when you look at the stat sheets, you'll think, oh, that's pretty thick for what it is. But then when you try it on, or when you see it on someone's wrist, it somehow, again, it sort of melts away. It all kind of makes sense. You can tell that they've thought it through. It's not just thick for thick's sake, or, it's not that they didn't consider it. I think it's just that just the way that they design it, it's part of the whole package type of thing. And then
they use a lot of the a lot of techniques to make it melt into your wrist.
Yeah.
So that even though it is thick on paper, even if you do take calipers and measure it, the way like they curve the sides of the case and polish it in that way so that it just goes into your wrist. And then when you look at it, even from a side profile, it doesn't look like it's just towering above your wrist. It just kind of blends into your wrist. Even the lug to lug, if it's really long, like with the Snowflake, I think it's 49, the lug to lug, which is kind of long for a 41 millimeter watch. It curves down around your wrist, including the end link pieces, which are T-shaped.
Yeah.
They curve down so that it actually fits even on smaller wrists, and it doesn't look odd or, gaudy or, like it doesn't fit. It looks like it does fit even on a smaller wrist. And a lot of those techniques, they've really put thought into making a thicker watch wearable.
Yeah. And even I think to a degree, they almost make them a bit, I wouldn't be surprised if they make it a bit thicker on purpose because it somehow matches the proportion of other dimensions better as well. It's not always, because, for example, the Octo Finissimo is super thin and I love it. It looks cool. But on my wrist, at least, it just looks a bit ridiculous because it's sort of a big flat square, like I think if I had a bigger wrist, probably it would look better. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it shows that relationship between how high the watch is or how thick the watch is and the diameter, or in that case, it's just the width because it's sort of a more square shaped watch. All of that sort of comes into play. The same thing, getting back to the reversal we were talking at the beginning, that is, they're not thick watches by any stretch of the imagination, but they are a little bit thicker than you'd imagine because they have that undercarriage underneath them. But because of how they work with the length, or like the lug to lug, and then the width of the case, it all seems to work together. And I think Grand Seiko is consciously doing the same sort of thing with their design. It's not just an arbitrary measurement for them. It's part of combining other measurements together to form like that perfect proportion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just looking into the chat box again. We've got Costas P saying he's also not a fan of chronographs which are not true chronographs or modules on top. I think in general, it's usually, for the most part, at least when it comes to chronographs, I'd prefer an integrated chronograph over a modular one. There's, in my view, at least too many advantages than just having an integrated chronograph versus a modular one. And also saying that, yes, surfaces are much less blingy despite being polished. And we have Luis Feo Sario saying hello from Peru. Hola, compadre. Right, so now moving on, because we are coming up to the 1 hour mark. It is obviously, it's already the end of January, which is, well, now it's 1st of February.
Yeah.
We're already a month into 2021. Just in general, man, what can people expect from the future of the channel from you? What are you planning on doing for your collection this year? What's the future look like for you? What's 2021 looking like for you?
Well, I definitely want to do a few more collaborations. Have some guys over like yourself, and just have fun. Have chats and have talks. I think that's really helped me cope, I guess, with a lot of the stuff that's going on, and the fact that we're connected through this hobby across the planet. It's really amazing. And so I really hope to keep doing like live streams like this, and I'm not in the channel to make money or anything. I'm not in the channel to do any sort of self-promotion or anything like that. And it's just about the hobby, and no, there's nothing wrong with promoting yourself or trying to make a living or some money on the side with these channels. I'm not saying that. It's just not what I'm into. And so basically I just want to make more friends, talk to more people, get to know more people, even new collectors. That's why I kind of always have like this open invitation to anyone on my channel, whether you're a YouTube celebrity or or if you're just a watch enthusiast. Everyone is, welcome to come on and talk and have fun, enjoy a coffee while we talk about watches. And that I really hope to, move forward in that way as well. As for watches I'm looking out for in the long term, is that JLC Tribute Small Seconds in Burgundy. I hope to maybe get that by the end of the year. If not, I am looking at that King Seiko as well. But I already got that vintage King Seiko that I'm super enthusiastic about. And other than that, I don't really have a lot of plans. Um, Maybe an Oris 400 by the end of the year. It will be probably getting ironed out by then.
That's a surprise. I'm like, wow, an Oris 400 already.
Well, by the end of the year, right? A year is a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming out. Seiko. I talked about this in the recent live stream I did. I had this whole monologue of how I'm so tired of Seiko's anniversaries, because last year, just to rant a little bit again, last year was the 55th anniversary for dive watches. I think it was the 120th birthday of 140th birthday of the founder of Kintaro Hattori. And this year is the 140th anniversary of Seiko, 1881. So, oh man, like so many limited editions, so many excuses to put out limited editions.
They've clearly they must have poached someone from Omega's marketing department, because yeah. I was commenting when I was talking about the Speedy that with the Speedmaster alone, they have 2 set anniversaries every decade. They celebrate the 7th year of the decade because that's when the Speedmaster itself was first released, and then 2 years later they're celebrating the moon, and that's before you bear in mind every single Apollo mission. They're going to be commemorating. It doesn't matter if it's like a nice round number or if it's, I don't know, the 23rd anniversary. They'll be like, you know what, this needs a special edition. So like I'm definitely with you, man. I think that special editions should be special, i.e. like don't do too many of them. And Omega, in my view, is probably one of the worst culprits. God bless them. I love them as a brand, but I just always imagine what is it like being one of those people who has that special edition thinking, yeah, this is the one. I even managed to cop one from, it was a small batch, not going to be another watch like this. And then like 2 years later, they're celebrating the same event with another special edition. It's like,
yeah. Well, I have a feeling Seiko's kind of jumped over Omega and how bad they've got. Because Seiko not only reissued a special watch, they reissued that same watch, then they reissued that watch in the same year. Like, so last year, first they or 2 or 3 years ago, they released the SLA 017 62 mass reissue, and it was really special. And in 2020, they reissue it as the SLA 037 with a high beat movement in it. And then later in 2020, they reissue that same watch with a black strap and a low, not a low beat, but a 28.8 vibrations per hour movement in it, and say, oh, hey, this is completely different. it's the same watch within 3 years. And I'd hate to be the guy who bought 017, thinking, wow, this is a really special piece.
Yeah, thinking I'm going to be the only one who has it.
Yeah. And the numbers have been climbing, right, since then. It's,
of course.
And I think the SLA 017 was 1,000 pieces. The SLA 037 was, I can't remember, but another 1,000, and then another 1,000, and just crazy.
Sometimes they get a bit carried away with the special editions. So just before we wrap up, I'm just going to answer a few questions in the chat box that have come in. We've also got Design Atelier who's coming in. Yeah, a little bit late, man, but hopefully you caught a little bit more of it before we wrapped up. Talking watches, good morning. Sorry for the timing, guys. We actually wanted to do this a tiny bit earlier, but also it's challenging coordinating the time difference because I'm based in India and Sanjay's based in Canada. So we kind of have to make that work. But hopefully you guys can rewatch it and catch what we've been talking about. Then we've got our first, Luis Fe Osorio asked, ¿Qué opinas del incremento de precios de Gran Seiko? So he's asking, what do we think of the price hike in Gran Seiko, the general sort of rising of prices? And then the other question, which also I'll direct to you because this is more your field of expertise than mine, is, hi guys, good morning. Do you think the Seiko SBDC 101 is worth the over $1,000 price tag? I think I know which one that is, but I'll let you confirm that and give your thoughts on that one.
So I think Grand Seiko's been holding the course when it comes to prices, which is rare. I think because Omega had around 3 price increases in the past year and a bit. They had 3 really quick price increases, and Rolex has had their yearly price increases. Grand Seiko hasn't changed prices in the watches that they are selling. They haven't increased their existing prices. So if you are able to snag, say, even the SBGJ 201, and I know Fred, you're looking at the SBGJ 203. That's the GMT black dial with the Mount Iwate. Those prices haven't increased. They've stayed the same. So if you can find it, you're gonna get it at the price it almost came out at. So I think that's good. But their new models are definitely climbing up very quickly. The SBGK 005, SBGK 007, 009, those ones have a pretty pedestrian hand-wound Grand Seiko movement based on the 9S55. It has a sub-seconds and a power reserve indicator. And the watch case is beautiful, and it's thin, and it's really nice. But the price increase on, say, the SBGW 231, which has a very similar movement, I think it's almost double. So they almost doubled the price between those 2 watches, which is quite crazy. So I guess in the newer pieces they're coming out, they're kind of pushing up, but the older pieces, their existing catalog is staying the same. So I think that's really good. So look at the existing catalog over, say, the new pieces coming out before they discontinue the existing catalog. I don't think they will. They haven't yet, at least. So existing catalog is the place to look. Especially with the GMTs, the high beat GMTs, and the spring drives. I mean, the SBGA 273, or I think that's a spring drive watch under $4,000, under $4,000 US. So amazing value, and it's 39 millimeters, so it's a good size too. And so those watches are getting rarer. I think they're spending more of their production in the newer watches, but look at the existing watches. Those are very well priced. The SBDC 101, I think that's the SPB 143 in North America or the international market. That's the gray dial 62 mass reinterpretation. The one that
is that the one Miguel has from SoCal?
Yeah,
I thought that was the one, but I wanted to confirm.
Yeah. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth the price if you can find it without any QC issues, which is really sad to say. Because I recently got the SPB 185. I actually got it this weekend on Saturday. That's the Steel Master, is what people are calling it. It's the Marine Master 200 redone in a smaller case with a steel bezel. So kind of an all steel look. It's really nice, but the bezel alignment is off. So the 12 o'clock, it's off. It's to click when you do get it right. The 30-minute marker is way off. And it's frustrating, but it's kind of what Seiko has become. So if you are able to handle a few of them and find like a good one, then I think it's worth the price tag. But at this point, it feels like we're enabling Seiko to pump out these poorly quality controlled pieces by purchasing them. So maybe it's time that we slow down. Maybe it's time I slow down. and I don't think I will get another Seiko. I kind of went into that in the previous live stream, that I'm starting to get the Seiko fatigue. You know, that Seiko is kind of churning out stuff without.
Oh, and it looks like we have lost Engineer Wannabe. Uh-oh. All right, guys. Well, since we are coming up to the 1 hour point, I guess might as well wrap this up anyway. But for anyone who wants to see more from Sanjay, go to the Engineer Wannabe YouTube channel. You can also find him on Instagram. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Sorry for the delays in getting it started, and then also the grainy footage. Still getting still getting my head wrapped around this live stream stuff. Sorry that Sanjay cut out as well. But yeah, thank you, everyone, for participating, and hopefully I can make these a more regular thing. Let me know in the comments on this video what sort of times most of you guys are available, what times and days, and what time zones, so I can try my best to coordinate to when the most amount of people are awake and available. But yeah, big thanks again to Engineer Wannabe for participating in this, and hopefully everything's okay with him getting disconnected. But yeah, thank you, everyone, for participating, and we'll see you on the next one. Catch you guys later.